Welcome to this tutorial, guys. So in this video we are going to talk about how to solve equations that are very simple. So we're going to begin with the basics, and in the next videos we're going to move a step further and then get to more complicated equations. So to start off with, I hope you remember from the last video in which I talked about equations, variables and terms, that an equation is something where you have an equal sign and where both sides are equal. So that means, if you think about that, and just as a simple revision, if we have a 4, an equality sign and another 4, it basically means that what is on the left side has to be the same as on the right side, because 4 equal to 12, this is basically not the same, and you have an imbalance. So that means what is on the left side is not the same as on the right side. So that doesn't work. However, if we have variables, this is kind of like a special situation then, because a variable basically means that there must be something that has to be filled in order to fulfill the equation. For this example now, for this specific example, we would say that, okay, from our mathematical understanding, if we multiply something with 4, it has to be 12. And most of you will probably get the result that x has to be 3 then, in order to fulfill this equation. Other than that, if you don't have a variable within your equation, it must be the same in terms of numbers. But if we think about now how to solve, for example, equations with variables, so this might be an example that is a bit easier, but examples that you will get in school and in exams will be a bit more difficult. And I will show you the methodology now. So the first rule is basically that you can add and subtract equations in order to solve them. So we will start with a basic example. So let's assume we have 10 plus x that is supposed to be equal to 16. What you will see, or what you will probably realize right in the beginning, is that in order to fulfill this equation, it's most likely that x is supposed to be 6. But if you want to solve that mathematically, how do you approach this task? So basically, what you do is now you look what you can do in order to reduce the left side to only have the x left, and what you do on the left side has also be done on the right side. For this example, it would be that we have to look what basically hinders us that the x isn't alone, so we have a plus 10 over here. And what we do now is we have to reduce this left side somehow in order to get the x alone. And the only thing is the 10 that can be reduced, so that means if we want to get to this specific result in the down here, we have to subtract 10. And what you will see now is basically like the key to solve equations. So we'll be left with 10 plus x minus 10, and this is equal to 16 minus 10. So what you see is now we subtracted 10 on the left side and on the right side. And what you see now is 10 minus 10, as we can rewrite the formula as well. This is basically 0, so it cancels each other out. What you will be left with is an x, and on the right side you will have 16 minus 10, which is then equal to 6. So this is basically like the methodology, what you can do with additions and subtractions in order to solve equations that look similar to this one. The next example, which is a bit more complicated, is then where you multiply and where you divide something. And I imagine that our function looks something similar to this one. So we have 8 times x equal to 32. So we know now that what is supposed to be set in for x should be 4. We are not sure about this, but this is something that we know from previous calculations. So we kept in mind basically. So we know that x in the end is supposed to be 4. And the approach to this is basically the same as we had before, only that you have to keep one specific thing in mind, because what you are not allowed is basically play with the x. So you cannot go there and either multiply an x or divide an x in this equation, because otherwise you're going to create an imbalance, because that would be a completely different result. So what we stick to now is every change that we do is only done with numbers. So we'll start off with, we have a multiplication over here. That means the only solution to this can be a division. And what do we have to reduce on the left side and on the right side in order to have the x to be standing alone in this specific task? We have to divide the whole thing by 8. And as you can see now, if we would divide the left side by 8, we would be left with 1 times x, and we would have 32 divided by 8. And why 1 times x? Because in the beginning we had the x 8 times, and now we are only left with x once, which is basically the same as to have the x standalone. And in this case I just wanted to show you how you would basically do the calculation before you get to the final result, which is then x times 4. In order to conclude this, I want to do like an example where we combine these two with you together. So take a pen and some piece of paper and do this example before you see my result. So the equation that I will give you is now 7x plus 4 times 25. I will show you the calculation now, but please make sure that you stop this video now, do the calculation on your own, and then compare it in order to see whether you learned what we did before, just as a self-reflection. So what we start now is we basically have to look what is the easiest step first. So first one, we want to apply the first rule. What we do now is basically we look, okay, this is something that we cannot reduce because we have a multiplication in this case, but we have a plus sign over here, so that means this is something that can be easily reduced. What we'll do now is calculate minus 4, and what you can always do is write it down this way, as I will do now. 7x plus 4, and then minus 4 equal to 25 minus 4. And now basically these things will be equal to 0. What you will be left with is then 7x equal to 25 minus 4 is 21. And now what we do now is basically the same as we did before with the rule for multiplication. We want to reduce this to have 1x, and we want to reduce this by the same amount that we reduce the left side. So what we do now is we will take the 7 away. That means you will divide the whole thing by 7, which gives us an x equal to 3. And that's already it. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was helpful. Other than that, subscribe to my channel and follow me on my social media for updates on the videos. And also, if you have specific questions on mathematical problems, maybe tips or tricks for learning, then either send me a message through social media or comment down below. And I hope you will be here for my next video as well.